dama bëgg ngeen def ndox seen bopp yi ngeen di xalaat di jiital seeni intérêt bopp góor ñi seen intérêt bopp la ñuy jiital soo yéen tamit jiital leen seeni intérêt bopp jiital leen seeni intérêt njaboot. Let's stop this BS of like, no, I'm gonna endure, I'm gonna muñ. No, you don't have to do that. There's some things that are muñable and some things that are not muñable. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. Point. Coucou, my loves. Welcome back to another episode. Tey nag sama yaram neexul. Sama deret dafa xaw a tàng. I'm like not in a good mood at all because the topic I'm talking about, it really boils my blood. I'm very passionate about it, but I'm gonna try to rein it in. I took some notes, so let me just talk about this topic, and hopefully you guys have your own ideas, your own thoughts, and can share them with me in the comments because I'm really curious to know what you guys think about this topic. Before that though, make sure you subscribe to the page so that you don't miss videos like this. I don't always rant, but when I do, I am humored by myself, I think. Anyways, okay, let's get to it. So the thing that I want to talk about today is something that I think our culture really needs to sit back and ask itself. So the Senegalese culture, right? We need to ask ourselves some very important questions. Why the hell do we push marriage in the way that we do? Number two, how much does one muñ before it's too much? And number three, when will we hold society and our families accountable for these terrible decision-making skills and processes around getting married? Like, there's just so many flaws. I'm going to talk about it in this episode. These questions are just as much rambling thoughts as they are crucial questions that we need to ask ourselves in this society that we live in this culture, in this social media age, especially in light of some of these like news that have come out around some singers in our Senegalese community. So let me tell you what's going on. I'm going to start with an example that really ruffled some feathers a while back. So that's the example of Guisse from the group Mabo, I guess ex-group Mabo. So she was in a group with her husband and they were singing all these lovey-dovey songs and everybody thought they were living in paradise. Then all of a sudden they're divorced, okay? And we find out that he actually was engaging in DV with her. And that was really tragic. No one really expected that because, like I mentioned, they were always singing love songs and they appeared to be this really happy couple on the surface. Turns out inside they were rotten as hell and this guy was really putting hands on her, according to her, allegedly. But, you know, they divorced and now we're seeing in today's age like a new Mia, a new person. And here's what's funny. Actually, her name is Aissatou and her last name is Guisse. Aissatou Guisse. That's so funny. I didn't even think about that until I just started talking about it. But anyways, we have a new like 180 Mia. She in the past would dress very modestly and she would kind of, you know, cover her hair a lot of the time, dressing in traditional clothing. And now we see, you know, Mia in a new light where she's dressing pretty provocatively. She's singing provocative songs. And I'll just be the first to say on record, I think she's lame. I think that she's proving so many people right. And that's not even something that I like to say because it's like, you don't want to live your life to prove people right or wrong. But you can get divorced without going wild. It begs the question, girl, are you attention seeking? Are you happy? Are you truly happy? Or are you trying to play into what society is telling you that you should be doing now that you're a divorced woman and you were oppressed before and now you're liberated? But I think that in general, she's just trying a little bit too hard and it comes off that way. It comes off a bit gimmicky. I love her voice. I think she's talented, but in terms of her music and what she's doing now, it just comes off a little bit too hard. Like, girl, calm it down. But anyways, I really say that because, you know, our culture, they will hype you up and bring you right back down within a second. So I just want her to keep that in mind and not get lost in the sauce. But anyways, moving on. That was the first example of like, in our generation, someone who decided like, I'm not going to live this life anymore. This person's beating on me. I'm going to leave that and go live my own life. And she really portrayed a great example of that in her song Ida. She was singing about kind of breaking free from that life, and she had her daughter in the video. I don't know if that was her actual daughter or just like a placeholder, but it was really beautiful to see. That song was very powerful, and I personally really enjoyed it right after her divorce. The things she's done after that, leaves a little bit to be desired. But anyways, that's the first example. And I would say in our generation, like I mentioned, she's the first public figure to come out and like showcase and broadcast that experience. There's a lot of women who are leaving their husbands every day and, starting over with their lives. But in terms of like public figure, I think we saw Vivian, but Vivian has always kind of had an I don't give a attitude. And so Mia really is the newest figure of like the newest face of the women empowerment movement and trying to kind of restart after going through something so tragic. This week we had two other incidents of people who have been in situations that are less than ideal. And I'm going to start with the first one. So we had Ndakhte Lo, and she did an interview on Confessions. I think the girl's name is Eva. I don't know what that lady's name is. But anyways, it's a show called Confessions on YouTube, and she went and did an interview where she talked about the tumultuous relationship she had with her husband or ex-husband now. And it was kind of shocking for people to see that because they knew she was divorced, like low key. But for her to talk about the fact that she had miscarriages throughout their marriage, she dealt with a lot of disrespect, a lot of lack of consideration, and she finally decided that that wasn't going to work for her, and she left that man. So that came out, I would say, earlier this week. Today's Friday that I'm recording this. It came out earlier this week, and she really talked about how she wasn't putting up with it anymore, and what would be the reason to. She asked the question, if somebody doesn't really consider you, she gave the example of like, I had a miscarriage and he texted me that he was going to a concert the same day. He wasn't even by my side to hold my hand and comfort me throughout the experience. So completely understand, rightfully so, she divorced that man. And I have to say, like, a lot of people are talking about the scenario saying like, oh, we have to wait till we hear both sides, yada, yada, yada. Maybe not. I would err on the side of most probable that he did that, and she's just talking about what she went through. Now, would I come out and make an interview and talk about what happened in my marriage after I left it? Maybe not, but I'm also not a public figure. I'm also not a singer. I'm also not famous. So, she has her reasons for why she did that, but that was another example after Guisse that we saw somebody coming out and saying, I'm not putting up with this. Now, finally today, this was the rotten cherry on top of the rotten cake of these bad news and these bad examples of marriages that I've been seeing. And it is somebody that I actually really, really like. It's Jayla. If you know me, you know that I love Jayla. I think she is such a powerful person. She's young, but I can I don't know her obviously, but I just have a sense that she's just very powerful, very strong woman who believes in herself and believes in what she's capable of doing. She's very talented. And so to see that there was a leaked audio where she's arguing with her husband, I don't know who recorded this. Whoever recorded this, you need a separate meeting with God. You need to talk about why you would think that this is acceptable to do. But anyways, in the audio, it can be heard that he's cursing at her. He's calling her out of her name. They're arguing, and she's saying, ever since I married you, I've just been living a horrendous life. Like, how does she say? That touched me, and you know her voice was cracking when she was saying it, so you could tell she had kind of just like hit rock bottom, or like she had gotten to a point where she was just like, I hate you, like I cannot believe this is my life. And that's why I said the person who recorded that was such a vulnerable moment. Why would you ever turn your camera on and decide to record that? Why would you turn your audio recording services on and decide that that was an appropriate thing to capture and then leak to the internet? I don't know how it got to TikTok, but it got to TikTok, and that's a problem. So somewhere in between, like it happening and TikTok, somebody's guilty of something. And that just really hurts for me, because I will say Jayla is one of those people that you don't really know much about her personal life. She got married, and it was probably one of the quieter marriages, like the quieter weddings. No one really talked about how much waruga she got, which I hate when they do that. But no one really talked about how much her husband gave her. No one really talked about, like, you know, the big wedding ceremony. I think she like wore one dress, at least from the pictures that we saw. It was very quiet and intimate, and I was like, yeah, this seems on par with Jayla. This seems like what she would be going for and what she kind of embodies as a person, as a woman. And I really enjoyed that. So it broke my heart today to see to hear that video where she was basically like screaming and like breaking down saying, I haven't known happiness since I married your ass. And I'm just gonna say apologies in advance for the cursing. Like I mentioned, I'm not in a good mood based on these things. Like it's really getting to me, and so I may slip up and curse, but stay with me, guys. It's just a very sensitive topic for me because I have so much to talk about with this topic. So those were the 3 examples that I wanted to start with and just show you guys like why I'm riled up, why I'm upset, and how we got to where we are today, where everybody's talking about these 3 ladies, right? Like when Ndakhte came out and said what she said about her ex-husband, Guisse, OG divorcee, came on and was like, I support you, I support you, I support you. Now, she did say something that I don't agree with. She was like, make sure you get proof before you divorce. Girl, stop. Okay? In getting proof, you might lose your life. If these men are that abusive, if these men are that disrespectful, I'm not encouraging anybody to stick around just for the sake of getting proof. If you need to divorce, just go ahead and divorce. That's what's going on right now. But I guess if you're trying to come out and like do a tell-all afterwards, maybe there is... I disagree, but anyways, moving on. So all of this led me to ask the question, like, what the hell is going on? I'm so confused. What the hell is going on? You know, in our culture, they always say, like, say you artists do ya good, like artists, when they get married, they're not going to stay together for long. They say that in the US too, but I don't think that this is like a regional phenomenon. I don't think it's specific to Senegal, so I don't think that's what the problem is. I think the problem is much more deep-rooted than we realize, and that's what I want to talk about today. I think across the board, marriages are falling apart in our society, and until we get down to the root of the issue, we're not going to have solutions for it. And I'm not saying in this episode we're going to have solutions for it. I'm just going to talk about what's going on, what my thoughts are, and ask you guys what your thoughts are as well. Please drop down in the comments and let me know as you watch this episode if you agree or disagree with something that I'm saying and what you would propose instead. And just for those who have been keeping up with my channel, I am including this as part of my parenting series because I'm going to come down pretty hard on Senegalese parents today. I think they are to blame for a lot of these issues. I think they are to blame for a lot of these divorces. So just a forewarning, I'm going to be including this in my parenting series because like I've been coming hard on them for how they raise their children. When we talk about marriage, this is like the culmination of a lot of the things we've talked about in the past and how Senegalese parents truly play a role in the detriment of their children's marriages. One of my least favorite Wolof sayings is "Tol na si sey." Like it's time for them to get married based on their age, instead of saying "mat na sey." And the reason I say this, so mat na sey, for those of you who don't speak Wolof, is like they're mature enough, they're ready to get married. So stay with me. In our culture, we love to declare that someone is of age to get married. And we don't really stop to think about if that person is mature or emotionally intelligent enough to be able to handle a marriage. I think a lot of people discount how hard marriage actually is. And in our society, we love to say, oh, she's 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yep, she's ready to get married, just because they've reached a certain age without really considering, can this person really handle what marriage throws at you? It throws a lot at you. And if you want a long, healthy, albeit you'll have arguments here and there, but overall a healthy marriage, if you want that, do you really want to throw somebody who hasn't had enough life experiences, who hasn't learned enough lessons, who hasn't learned enough conflict resolution skills, communication skills? Like there's so many things that I think you need to have in order to have a successful marriage. And I think in our society, we love to just be like, we'll take care of the rest. You just get married and then we'll come in and we'll fill in the gaps. And that's something that I so disagree with. Like, I think a lot of parents, like, they say things like, so you xale mag ñe si jàpp. Listen, these kids are not waiting for the adults to come and intervene and help them resolve their issues. Okay, they are getting married. If they see what they like, they stay. If they don't like what they see, they get the hell up out of there. So a lot of parents are not catching up with the trends of our reality, of our society, of our generation. That basically, I'm not sticking around for no BS. And I don't care whether you think you have a role to play as an adult or not. I'm going to let you know what I'm capable of handling and what I'm not. And I think it's in the best interest of the parents to take a step back, take a beat and be like, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't rush these marriages because I might get some embarrassment out of this later on when my daughter decides she doesn't care what I have to say, she's leaving the marriage. Or my son decides He doesn't care what I have to say. I'm divorcing this woman. And I think a lot of parents are not thinking about that. And when kids get divorced, they're just like, it's like, no, did you really stop and think about, like, you didn't do the prerequisites required to actually support this couple? You thought that you could, what is it? What is there I'm trying to say? You thought that you could carry the marriage for them. You thought all they had to do was just show up on the wedding day and then you would do everything in the background to make things go right. No, the two most important people in a marriage are the husband and the wife. Like, I'm sorry. A lot of Senegalese parents don't understand that. They think that as long as they have an entourage of older adults who sometimes are not even that mature, to be honest, let's just say it, as long as they have that older entourage around them, that the marriage is going to be fine. But the reality and what we're seeing today is that a lot of kids, a lot of married young couples are not putting up with the BS. They're not waiting for intervention from an older couple, from an older figure. They're figuring out on their own that it's not going to work, and they're just leaving. I just think back to like when I was 20, shoot, up until like 25, I was not ready for marriage. I just was not ready. I couldn't have held down a household the way I am now. I still struggle now. Like, there's just no way at 20 I would have been able to hold down a household. And I think a lot of people also don't understand, like, married couples want privacy, intimacy, connection, partnership. And in our culture, a lot of parents think that they can just be default, like de facto part of the marriage. Like, like I just mentioned. So they just think like, oh, the couple doesn't really need privacy, so they can live with us, and we'll survey them, we'll keep an eye on them and make sure they're doing well, blah 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 blah. I don't know if you guys understand what I'm saying, but like, a lot of older people think that as long as they get the kids married off, they will handle the rest. And I just want to say, if you have to do everything for your child in their marriage aside from sleep with their spouse, your child has no business getting married. That's just the reality. A lot of people don't understand that. Is like, a lot of parents are basically doing everything for their child in their marriage except for sleeping with the spouse. And then what happens is people get in these cycles of like, well, if I leave, then I'm going to embarrass my family, or if I leave, my enemies will have something to say. That stuff doesn't matter. A true, healthy, happy marriage is truly between the two people who are involved, irrespective of what anybody else thinks. So of course, like, you don't want to be in a society, or you don't want to live in a world where everybody's against you and you're fighting the world. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, like, the fundamentals of a marriage, I think we're losing sight of that in today's society, in today's generation, in our parents' approach, their desperate approach to get their kids married off. A lot of parents are truly just trying to get their kids married off. So one, they're not a financial burden for them. There's a lot of people who, let's talk about it, they want their kids to get married, especially those daughters. Get married and go to your husband's house so I don't have to feed you no more. There's a lot of that happening, and what that leads to is you precipitate things. You rush things in a way that you're putting your daughter in a situation where she's actually not going to be happy. But I guess that's assuming you care about her happiness. A lot of parents don't care if you're happy. A lot of parents don't care if you're thriving. You get married and they want you to stay in that marriage, and they want you to mun. And that's why I asked the question early on of like, how much does one mun? How much is too much? And the threshold is different for everybody, but I think our society really misses that, and they think like I with the whole Ndakhte situation, a lot of people are just like, some people are going through way worse and you don't hear them talking. Okay, maybe their threshold for munning is a lot higher than Ndakhte. I know for me personally, if you hit me, we're going to have issues. We're going to have a lot of issues, actually. So I think we just have to stop putting this like template on top of everybody and thinking that all marriages should be the same. As long as the adults are involved, it's going to be fine, and that the kids should just put up with whatever because say the fameti. Yes, say the fameti. No marriage is easy. No marriage doesn't require you to sacrifice, to endure, to really go the distance. Like, if you decide to get married, you're going to have to wake up every single morning and decide to be married. I don't know how I can explain that in any other way other than like, that's the decision that you make. It's a commitment. A commitment is not something that's going to feel good all the time. So we get that part. But the part that we don't get is, why do I have to suffer? Why is it that the world itself is hard, right? There's so much happening. I go to work, I'm dealing with a tough manager, a tough team, a tough boss, all these different things. And then I come home and I'm getting talked down to. I'm getting belittled. I'm getting disrespected. I'm getting beat. That's not marriage. That's not healthy. That's not sustainable. So I'm proud of these women for deciding, like, I'm not putting up with this anymore. I think that if your mom, if you call her and you tell her your husband's beating on you and she tells you to stay, she needs to go on the no contact list for a little bit, and you need to figure out what you're going to do with your life. I am a firm believer that hitting, abuse, beating, no, none of that is acceptable. And of course, every couple has fights. And so I see, actually, when I was thinking about this episode, I listened to the argument between Jayla and her husband. And of course, I hate that it even reached TikTok and that I was able to hear something like that. It was so intimate. But I thought to myself, every couple fights, every couple has arguments. And if there was a third person in the room watching a couple fight, if there was a fly on the wall, they would think that that was an abusive situation, because once you start arguing and fighting, listen, it can get ugly quick. So I'm not necessarily faulting that couple for having that moment. I'm faulting the person who recorded and decided to put it out there. But like I mentioned, every marriage is hard and everybody endures, everybody moons. But the reality is, and the truth is, you have a threshold. As an individual, as a human being, you have a threshold. You should not go above that threshold for the sake of proving anybody right or wrong. That's all I'm saying. And something I really, really, really do not like in our culture, we love to talk about Ndakhte Lo. Listen, a part of me agrees with that. Once you get married, you want to think about the stability of the child, and you want to make sure that you're not thinking for yourself and putting yourself first over the child. The child always has to come first. But because the child always has to come first, you want to make sure that you don't foster a toxic environment where your child has to see you getting beat. You want to make sure you don't foster an environment where your child has to see you getting disrespected, because what you're teaching your child as they grow up, that's what's going to be imprinted in their memory, in their brain, in their formative years. And when they grow up, that's going to affect their attachment style. I haven't talked about attachment style too much. I think I talked about it when I was doing like Love is Blind reviews. Anyways, but like, that's going to impact how your child grows up and how they think they deserve to receive love and how they think they should give love. Those things matter. There's a lot of broken people out there, and a lot of people are not thinking about what true success looks like. They think that if two people have been married for 50 years, for 40 years, for 30 years, that they were successful. But if in those 30, 40, 50 years, you raised children who grew up to be damaged, if in those 30, 40, 50 years, you raised children who grew up to be abusive, that's not success. So we really have to think about what incentivizes us to stay in these relationships. What are we getting out of it? What are we putting into it? And what is a product of those relationships? Are our children growing up being empathetic human beings? Are they growing up being healthy human beings? Are they growing up being caring human beings? Or are they growing up and beating people's asses because that's all they really saw growing up in their own household? And like, guys, we have to be honest about this stuff. Just being married for the sake of being married and longevity does not determine the success of a marriage. We really have to start dissecting these individual relationships, starting with ourselves, okay? And then we can apply that standard to society to say, here's what healthy looks like. There's not a one size fits all for everybody, but we can all agree that beating, abusing, disrespecting, and lack of consideration is not the standard. That's not something we should be co-signing on. That's not something we should be applauding. That's not something we should be signing off on. Did I already say that? Probably. But I'm just on a rant here. Like, I'm so riled up because these things are things that we hear so much in our society, and nobody bats an eye. In Senegalese culture, it's just like, munyal, 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 munyal. Like, no, let's really hold people accountable. Let's, if you beat my daughter's butt, I'm beating your ass. If you touch my daughter, I'm beating. Like, we gotta start having that type of energy. Fathers need to start having that type of energy for their son-in-laws. Mothers need to start having that energy for their daughter-in-laws. Don't put your hands on my child. Don't do that. And until we get out of this cycle of like, nope, the more you endure, the more success you will have through your kids. Like, say, let's cut that shit. Let's cut that, because that's what gets a lot of people in this emotional blackmail cycle of like, oh, I have to endure for my kids to be successful. You don't have to. You don't have to. Senegalese people love to think that if you're in a loving marriage, God forbid, like, you know, your husband's a simp and you're manipulative as the woman and yada, yada, yada. No, you don't have to suffer to be successful. You don't have to suffer to be successful. We have to cut the mental gymnastics. We really, really do. And we also have parents who truly want their kids to get married for their own pride and ego. Let's talk about that. There's a lot of people who they don't care if their kids are in love. They don't care if their kids are going to be happy, if they're going to be in good conditions or good hands. No, they don't care about that. And if you know, you know. A lot of parents want their kids to get married so they can hear nyak. Nyak nangul, nyak nangul, nyak nangul. That's what they care about. Like, I'm sorry. A lot of people, it's their pride and ego. So they don't really care about their kids' happiness. They care about the fact that they endured. They mun. So now it's their day. Come on now, that's fucked up. I have two other topics that I want to talk about. I promise, I know I'm rambling and saying a lot of things, but I have notes in front of me. Two things that I want to talk about. The first thing is that karma exists. A lot of parents, and I told you I was coming down hard on parents, like a lot of parents, they will know their kid is dating someone, their child is dating someone. And I said kid, that was not a Freudian slip. That was truly, maybe it was a Freudian slip. They're literally kids. Some of these people are literally kids. Like they're getting married at 16, 17, 18, 19. No, hard no. I'm a firm believer that people need to wait until like at least 25. Their frontal lobe needs to develop. You need to know what the hell you're doing and why you're doing it. And even then, you can still make a mistake, right? But either way, the odds are a little bit less when you've had a more life experience. But anyways, let me get back on track, guys. Let me get back on track. Okay. Karma exists. You know your daughter is dating somebody. You know your son is dating somebody. They're in love. Listen, I don't care what none of these parents say. They can tell when their kids are in love. Okay? Instead, what they do is like, garabulo sutulura maiker, nini suñu askan, nini suñu deret, nini suñu waso, nini khalis. So they say all these different things, right? To convince their kids that they don't need to be with that person. They have a better match for them. Do you think your child is going to know peace if they have to betray somebody to get married? Listen, I'm all for date, date, break up, and then get into a new relationship. But a lot of times what's happening is the homeboy down the street is finding out that his girlfriend is getting married today. And he had no idea. Because a lot of these parents will manipulate their children and they will emotionally blackmail them. They will threaten that they will cut them off and disown them and all these different things to the point where their kids just give in and they get married to somebody that they don't even love. Okay. And then their parents think that the kids are going to know peace in that relationship. No, you betrayed somebody. You won't know peace and your child won't either. So I'm not saying that the examples I gave earlier were like cases of that. What I'm saying is that it happens so much in our culture where we think that, you know, the ends justify the means. No, there are honest and honorable ways to break up a relationship before you move on to the next thing. Does that mean karma won't catch up with you? No, it probably still might, but at least you tried, you know. But there's so many people who literally will just be like so righteous about it, like, nope, I'm picking what's best for me. Well, guess what? You betray somebody in the process and karma will come back to get you and your parents. Guys, I told you I was not in a good mood today, so let me move on to the last point, because this is another thing that riled me up right before I started this video. I was looking up the Jayla and Mayasin situation. That's her husband's name, I guess. But anyways, I was looking that up and I came across this video and it was Jayla's mom talking about like, ñun sëy rek lañu xam, divorce moom danga koy nàmp mbaa nga donn ko. Girl.
ñooñu sëy tas dañoo xamul sëy xamuñu sëy ñun dañoo xam sëy ba jeex ñun fu ñu ko sëy ba jeex sama doom ñoo bokk ndey ak baay caat ba taw ñoo bokk ndey ak baay fii deel tollu sëy fii tollu sëy ba léegi te génn ma kër kon deel day sëy ba jeex ñun xamuñu sëy tas.
I just want to say divorce jommul kenn. None of us are immune to divorce. Anybody can go through that. Anybody, like, it can happen to anybody. So I hate in our society, again, these parents who really are self-righteous, who really are egotistical, who really are in their own heads about these things, thinking that my daughter is so good. No, there's going to be no problem. My son is da-da-da-da. My family, my bloodline, my this, my that. Like, shut the hell up. Do you know that you're not in control of everything? You're not in control of everything. So again, there's all this manipulation. There's all this like putting things together and like forcing your kids to do things. And then of course the kids too, like they're in a rush to get married for no reason. Don't get married because your kids are getting married. Don't get married because your friends are getting married. Don't get married because you feel like it's the right time, even though you haven't found the right person. Bëgge ak ngàpparal du la indi lenn lu dul ay problem. Literally, like y'all need to understand that. I'm sorry. There's so much going on here, and this episode is probably going to sound so jumbled up, but it's kind of a rant. At the same time, it's like a think piece. I just don't understand why we are where we are today, but when you really think about it, it starts to make sense. The way that we rush things, the way that parents are at the center of everything that's going on in their kids' lives. They don't give them any agency, any time, any critical thinking skills to figure out what they want to do. No, it's all about what the parents want. And then the kids, of course, are lost because it's not developed all the way. So they're making decisions haphazardly. There's just a lot going on. And the icing on the cake for me today was that Jayla's mom video talking about divorce this, divorce that. Girl, you don't know if your kid's marriage is going to go all the way through. You just don't. I hate when people compare themselves to other people. I hate when people try to place blame or try to belittle other people for things that are outside of their control. You don't get to control whether your kid's marriage goes through or not. Now, you can force them to moon and moon and moon, but I'm telling you, everybody has a threshold. And the last thing that you want is for somebody to lose their life in the battle of marriage. Like, it shouldn't be like that. It should not be like that at all. I'm going to end the video on this part here where I'm just going to talk about the three husbands of the three ladies that I talked about at the beginning of the video. No Face, Mario, and what that other person name? Mayasin. Listen, your karma is coming. Your karma is coming. You will see this. You will. Toroha Jigen is just like, why? They're beautiful. I'm not saying they're without fault. I wasn't in the marriage. I don't know what they did. But beating them, cussing them out, and abandoning them when they're going through a miscarriage, unacceptable. So I just have to say that, and that's all I had for you guys today. I absolutely hated seeing these scandals. They really riled me up because I'm not a girl's girl in the sense that girls can't be wrong. Like I mentioned, I don't know what these ladies did. Not to say that anything they did justified what happened to them, but of course marriages, relationships are very complex. And so I just want to say, like, I'm glad that they found the courage to leave these men. Jayla, I know, nobody's talking about divorce for you yet, but you need to leave them, man. But, like, I'm glad that they are strong women who are capable of standing up for themselves and recognizing when something is not going right. I really, really think that that's a positive thing we need more in our culture, to hold people accountable. If your husband's beating you, buko sutural. Don't come out on social media. Don't be doing interviews talking about he's great, he's this, daf ma sagal, daf ma sigi. No. You're going to interview me. He's beating me up. Kuka def, kuka wax la bëgg. Listen, stop suturaling these people who do not deserve it. Don't let these dusty men limit your potential. Good bu bon day sul ndanan. Like, for real, come buñ bu yàqu rek bu di sànni. I'm sorry, we're not putting up with no dusties in 2024, 2025 onward. Listen, ladies, take your time. There's no rush to get married. There's no rush to... It's just not worth it. Like, you don't want to rush to get married just for the sake of being a Mrs. And then 2 years later, you have to come out and explain to everybody why you made the wrong decision and why this and why that. Like, let's take our time. Let's vet these partners. This is who we're building a life with. And, this is who we're starting a family with. Like, that's a big deal. Let's not take it lightly. Dama bëgg ngeen def ndox seen bopp yi, ngeen di xalaat, di jiital seeni intérêt bopp. Góor ñi seen intérêt bopp la ñuy jiital. So yéen tamit jiital leen seeni intérêt bopp. Jiital leen seeni intérêt njaboot. Let's stop this BS of like, no, I'm going to endure. No, you don't have to do that. There's some things that are muñable and some things that are not muñable. Okay? That's all I'm going to say. Point. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you guys thugging it out with me as I went through this rant. If you have not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the page. But more importantly, get down in the comments and let me know what you guys think about this topic. I would love to hear from divorcees. Like, I know the society is probably like talking all this shit about you. Don't worry, girl. Okay, jombul ken. Di ñaanal ñepp jàmm, yàlla ñu yàlla defal jàmm. If you don't speak well, I'm just praying for everybody. Like, I'm praying for the whole world. Yàlla ñu yàlla defal jàmm, yàlla may ñu ay borom kër yu baax, ay soxna yu baax, ay doom yu barkeel. Yàlla ñu yàlla defal jàmm. Loolu daal laa mën a ñaan. Yàlla ñu yàlla defal jàmm. Thank you so much for watching this video. Like I mentioned, please be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, all of those good things, and I will see you in the next one.